Welcome back, guys. We're here with Kate, and you kind of reached out and we're, looking for somebody, the certified aging in place CAPS, and you kind of reached out and we had a great conversation. I said, hey, let's go talk more. Let's really, get the knowledge out there. And obviously we had a good conversation about, nobody knows about this. So why don't you kind of just start off? Who are you? What are you doing? And, why are we chatting now?
Yeah. I was so excited to have you respond as enthusiastically as you did. I'm Kate Gervais, and I'm a SRES, a senior real estate specialist. I got into real estate after 40 years in nonprofits. Wow. I started my career in New York City. I worked in Chicago. And I've been in Connecticut for a long time. I live in West Hartford. And I do all kinds of real estate. I specialize in listings, but I work with buyers as well. And I really specialize in helping senior citizens. And when I do something, I really do it. And so I've really gotten into it and really tried to learn how to provide the best services that I can. And every kind of service, what is the top way of doing that service that I can? So if there is a certification that is offered, I want to partner with somebody who has that certification. Especially if it's an area that is related to safety or health. And so I found out that there is a certification for people who help someone stay in their home. And I know you know far more about this than I do, and that's the whole point. I work with a team of people who have their own businesses, and they are expert at what they do. And so when I go to work with somebody who's not sure whether they want to stay in their home or not, I provide a free consultation and meet with them and talk to them about their goals, how their house is meeting their needs, how it's not meeting their needs, and ask them, do you want to stay in your home? And so I learned, went to the Connecticut Building Council.
Yeah, Home Building Association.
Home Building Association. And I said, give me a list of everybody who is certified aging in place specialist. And they gave me a list, and I looked down that list. I went on everybody's website, and your website really stood out. I spent a lot of time on it and seeing how you really described what your commitment to this was, and I was really impressed. So we talked, and I really want people to know what a certified aging in place specialist is. So that's why I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah. It's we've kind of saw the demand and the need for it. So we did get the certification, but I feel like we never had the opportunity to find a person like yourself that can have that consultation with the client, because it's really when we talk about somebody getting older or somebody losing mobility and all of that stuff, it can be kind of challenging. And I think there's a certain way to kind of navigate that conversation. Because I don't think anybody wants to get old and think about it. But the reality is with some planning and going in and thinking about the future, and maybe, renovating your kitchen and your bathroom, and maybe kind of, bringing maybe your bedroom down and doing a primary suite on the first floor, you can stay in the home and not have to worry about assisted living or any of these, facilities that are really in such high demand that you might not even have the option to do that. There's only so much room, and I think they're trying to build assisted living as much as they can, but there's not enough. And why not be able to stay in your home?
Right. I think, it's not one size fits all.
Right.
And I also think, there's lots of people who are trying to plan ahead. You know, nobody has to be afraid of that conversation.
Right.
We all are going to get older if we're lucky. You know, it's better than the alternative.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
And so what we want to think about is this home right for me now? And will it be right for me in the future?
Right.
And so for some people, a senior living community is perfect for them. And for some people, moving to another home is right for them.
Right.
And for some people, they really want to stay where they are. And for those people, we want to make sure that whoever is helping them visualize their home is really qualified to be able to do that and knows what to look for. And I'd like, to know what you think people should look for.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we look at mobility and slip and falls or any kind of on the safety side, it's always in the bathroom, and most of the time it's getting in and out of the tub. So it's that it's wet. It's, you have to kind of, if you have an old standard tub, it could be a tall tub. You really have to be able to step in and over on a wet floor. And that's where is usually our first step is to get to a curbless shower or at least a walk-in shower. And that would be, the first, one of the first things we do. Obviously, before that, we can try to put grab bars, and grab bars are, you can get stuff that there's a variety of grab bars. But honestly, when we think about the whole home and even in the bathroom, what we do is we'll follow, we'll walk with the client and say, okay, go through your routine. And we were watching for them to actually, where do they put their hands? Wow. So when they come in, did they just put their hand on the wall? Okay, we need something there. Is there, if the room has a couple, steps, if it's like a split level ranch or something, and they're walking down the hall and maybe there's a couple steps. Do we want to put another grab bar, on the other side of the railing, or put double railings on so they have railings on both sides? So bathrooms is our first. Is where the safety is, and it can. We can design it for if somebody has something that is maybe more degenerate, so they know they're going to move to a wheelchair at one point. Then we want to say, okay, let's design the bathroom so that it looks really nice, but it will be handicap or wheelchair accessible. So now we're going to make the whole bathroom a wet room. And have, we want to think about the space. So your toilet, instead of, our standard setbacks of the toilet, we want to make that area even bigger and have the whole room be able to get wet. Wow. So waterproofing. The other, there's so many great products. For instance, that can make it so it doesn't look like you're in a facility. It looks like you're home. And we just actually did a tour of Plimpton and Hills over the Waterford in Avon, and they were kind of talking about. They had some really good examples of like these towel bars that look like you could, you just hang your towel on it, but actually it's a grab bar rated.
Wow.
So now, and they were putting it in the shower, and they had really good displays, and it was just like, wow, that looks, because it matches, it's the same finish and the same style as actually the shower handle and the spouts. So it looked like it was part of, right, but yet it was rated to be able to use. Right.
You want to feel comfortable in your home. You want a certain feel in your home, and you don't want to feel like you're in an institution.
Right, exactly. And so then there's other products, like there's vanities that we can install that actually has the bottom section is a panel that can be then taken apart, down the road, and it allows a wheelchair to be able to, roll underneath. But for the time being, it looks like a regular standard vanity, but you don't have to renovate afterwards. So we want to think about that accessibility. You know, you want a little bit deeper of a sink. You want to be able to get your knees underneath if you're in a wheelchair.
Right. A lot of people ask me things like, well, if I do these renovations, will I be able to sell my house afterward?
Right.
What would you say to that? You know, how does it look, and does it decrease?
The next person that needs aging in place is going to love you.
Right. That's
you
true.
know? Because when you look at, generations, it's a big cohort. And so as people are, might not need the home again, the beginning of that generation is going to need it.
Right.
So I think doing, any renovation like that, you're going to make the next person in need very happy that they don't have to do it.
Right. And also it probably looks like it could be used for either.
Yes.
Would you consider it's something like universal design?
100%. Yeah.
And the concept of universal design, if I wonder if you can help me describe what that is. It's something that can be used by everyone, right. Like a ramp.
Yep.
Can be used by people in a wheelchair or people who could use steps but could use a ramp.
Right.
And I think if we move more toward that, then it doesn't exclude anybody, and it does include more people.
Yeah. And Europe really pushed that much sooner than we, that's kind of how they design. So it's not this, here's a handicap ramp or here's a handicap bathroom. Right. Here's just a bathroom and here's an access to get to the building, right. And everybody uses it. And it all kind of, molds with the design. It's unfortunately, we have a really old housing stock in Connecticut. So they weren't, but as a lot of new construction now, we have we design homes with this zero entry. So we have this ability to, create, design the home along with the landscaping around it so that you can easily get in and out of the home without any steps.
Right.
And have that kind of, or the walkways are designed into the landscape that it is slightly like a ramp,
right?
But it fits in, and you don't realize that you're actually walking up a ramp,
right?
So yeah, it's. I think people can really understand that you can really transform your home and stay in it at any level. Obviously, there's always a budget involved, and
right.
And the more we hide things or fully redesign an existing home, there's a cost to that. But on the flip side, the other side is it's costly too.
Right.
So
right. One of the things I also wanted to bring up is sometimes when people stay in their homes a really long time, the home starts to isn't it in as good a shape as it might have been in the beginning. And people, for some people, their home is their biggest asset. Mm-hmm. And so, what are some things that people can do to sort of take care of their homes or keep them in good shape, or what have you come across? Because you're talking about the older housing stock.
Yeah.
And as people get older or live in their homes, some people have lived in their homes 40 years. What have you seen happen, and how can people, one of my things that I feel really strongly about is preserving the equity in your home.
That's a good question. So I would say the first, I'm being interviewed. This is great. No. So I think the first thing is, take care of the exterior home, and what we have found is that not replacing the roof and maintaining the gutters can destroy somebody's home very quickly. So, you want And gutters, let's just take gutters. Just hire a company to clean your gutters once a year. Because what we found is that a backed up gutter, and especially more lately, the these really bad rainstorms, it puts so much, the water comes down, it's either splashing everywhere, it's getting into your siding, it's going to start to rot, it's coming down, it's going into the basement. It's water and plugged up gutters can cost tens of thousands of damage. I mean, we'll have people that come out and say we need to waterproof our basement, and it's like, no, you just need to clean your gutters. So cleaning the gutters, and then if you have a house, that keep painting it. If it needs paint it. Obviously vinyl siding, you want to maintain it by washing it, but taking care of the exterior. Bring a landscaping company in and have them cut back your bushes and your trees, because we found that too. Like your trees and your bushes, most of them just continue to grow. So, 20 years ago when everybody was busy and they were outside trimming their own trees and keeping them down, it looked good. Or you installed them 20 years ago and now they've gotten way too oversized. So what we find is that, especially, in people that have maybe aren't outside as much, though the back of the house or the areas of the house that they don't realize, the bushes and trees have grown into the house. And what it does is it's a direct conduit for termites and for carpenter ants and for squirrels. But most of it is you're covering that area of the house that it's not allowing it to breathe. And you have all of this moisture that is starting to build up and it never dries out. So now you have mold and you have mildew, and eventually that's turning to rot. So that's the biggest protection. No one likes to cut down all that stuff because it makes your home. But we say it's a minimum of 18 inches off the house. Everything, the envelope of the house needs to be cut back at least by 18 inches. And you'll see, there'll be mold, there'll be mold and mildew or moss on the roofs if you have a lot of, and that becomes unhealthy. All homes have mold inside of them, unfortunately, but we want to try to minimize that, especially as people get older, that it's going to be affected. We had a whole podcast on this too, is regular maintenance on your mechanicals. Because we'll walk in to do a remodel and we'll see some old heating and cooling systems that are 50, 60 years old. And right next to them is a book of that it's been had maintenance, yearly. Like here's the checklist of what they've been maintained once a year. And it's lasted an additional 20 years because of the maintenance. And I think that's really important as you're getting older. You might have done that stuff. You would go down there and check the filters and you would go down and do that. And now you might not, you forget to do that. And it's tough to go, especially with today's pricing, to go and call one of these companies, because it's not $100 anymore. Everything's $1,000. Like, you make a phone call and it's $1,000, but that's going to be peace of mind. And you're not going to, they're going to come in and service it. And you're not going to, have that no heat in the middle of the winter. So maintenance on the utilities, exterior, keep it trimmed back, paint, new roof. The interior stuff, I think there's, if your home is older, there's a certain amount of safety with electrical. So if it's, a lot of homes are, anything built before the 30s and 40s, you could have some, knob and tube, or you could have regular old fuse panel. And what happens is that, especially in times like we just had the last 3 days, you might have never plugged in that fourth air conditioner. And now all of a sudden you're creating a lot of stress on those systems, because when we first started putting in electrical, you would plug, there'd be one light in the center of the room and we didn't have stuff to plug in. There wasn't all of these things that we plug in now. So our electrical systems in most houses aren't designed for what we're plugging in now. So I would say in a safety aspect, you can have, upgrade your electrical system, have somebody come in, make sure you have GFCIs in your bathroom and in your kitchen, in the wet areas for safety. Because as we all get older, we might not be thinking the right way, and you don't want to put put the toaster in the wrong place,
Right.
So, but remodeling, here's another good one. If you have hardwood floors and you keep up with, and this is such a big project, so in that it's not costly and it's not hard to do, but the project is if you've kind of over time you acquire a lot of things, you have to move it all out of all the rooms to get your floors refinished.
Right.
But what we found is that a good hardwood floor that's been maintained and you can actually, been refinished and then kept up, you can actually come in, not have to strip it completely down, but just top coat it every 5 years. You can, what we say is hardwood floors are going to be forever. They can be forever if they keep, sometimes we'll walk in and it's just the wear pattern and they've never been, they've never been kept up. And now when we sand them down, we really have to flatten them out, and we're losing, years and years of wear, because we can, sand them usually up to 3 or 4 times in their lifetime. But if you let it really get bad,
you have to really keep maintaining that polyurethane
exactly
coat. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And for kitchens and bathrooms, we say only do kitchens and bathrooms if you want to do it and you want to do for the enjoyment of them. Because usually your return on a kitchen or return on a bathroom just isn't worth it. If you pay, you might be able to, in a market, and this, in a market, in a tough market, you'll sell the home quicker. But you're not going to, if you say, I'm going to put $40,000 into this bathroom, you're going to only increase the value of your home by 15. You never get your money back. But in a tight market, you might have to do that just to get somebody to buy your home. So I guess it would be the market. But kitchens and bathrooms, you do that because you want to enjoy yourself. You don't get your money back. Windows... siding is important. Windows are kind of overhyped. Don't be sold on new windows to save energy. The math doesn't work. It never has worked. It only works for the window companies.
There are some programs.
Yeah.
With,
if you're able to get it subsidized, for sure.
Right.
But you're going to spend, $20,000 or $30,000 for new windows, and you're going to save, $48 a month. If we do the math, it takes you about 30 years to get your money back.
Right.
It's not worth it.
Right.
But do it if you have old windows that, were in the 1930s or 1940s. Typically they have lead paint. Right. So get rid of those.
Or they don't function properly.
Right, they don't
open well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. When I'm advising people about getting their homes ready for sale, there's certain things that, I do advise them to do. And if the kitchen is really, people are now looking at homes that are more opened up.
Yeah.
And so if a house is very closed up rooms, that's going to fetch a lower price.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Like, but I don't know. I think you would probably agree with me in the last 2 years, if it had four walls,
Yes.
and they had
selling,
if there was a roof on it, it'd be 100,000 over ask, and the person wouldn't have even come and looked at it.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of houses with structural issues.
Yeah.
So there's been like major issues, wet basements, not due to gutters, but due to pretty serious things.
Unfortunately, there's going to be a bit of buyer's remorse. I think there's probably a lot of buyers out there that felt forced into, because there was a bidding war and they didn't know what else to do and they had to move and they kind of settled. I feel like that once we've adjusted whatever the market's doing right now, I think we're going to see another big push of people kind of wanting to move around. So if interest rates have to go down, and I think that's really what it is, but I think, and we create enough inventory, I feel like there's going to be another rush of a lot of people that bought in the last couple of years being like, we bought it because we had to, and to move out of it. But I don't know.
Can you talk more about, I really love my senior clients so much. What is involved in getting certified to be a certified aging in place?
Yeah. So it's a course, and it's done by the HBRA, and you go, I don't know if they moved it when I did it. We did it in classroom, and luckily it was a few years ago. So I went to college a lot later. So it was kind of like a college course, and I was fine with it. But there's classroom time, and it's an instructed, and it's pretty extensive. Like, we really dove into, there is the design, there's the products, and then the biggest part of it, which I was surprised because they really focused in on this whole area of understanding the psychology of the client. And because sometimes there's people, it could be an accident or a sickness that has kind of crept up on them. And there's two types of clients. There are the people that are maybe in their 50s or early 60s and saying, hey, I'm going to pre-plan for this. And they're very, they're thinking about it very practically, and they're just facing it, and they're kind of enjoying it. And they're saying, we're going to stay here, and we're going to do all this stuff. And that's where we see, let's do a nice primary suite on the first floor. We're going to do a back wing, and it's going to, we're going to have, everything's going to be curbless, and we're going to have easy access, and we're going to, configure it so that we can get in and out of the garage easily for the vehicles. Or what we've seen is, we're going to do a second floor, but we're going to put an elevator in. And that sounds, elevators sound pricey, but they're not. I mean, we can do nice little electric elevators. So there's two types of clients. And then there's the other client that is having to do it because they're not allowed to leave. Maybe they're in rehab, and now that they can't leave until the home is kind of reconfigured so that they can live there. It's two different clients. So I was very surprised on how extensive that was to figure out how to talk to them. And in that same section of clients is when, the son or the daughter is saying, hey, mom and dad can't really, they're not getting around. They fell in the shower. Like, it's all of these things. And
Right.
then it's saying, sitting down with everybody and saying, okay, well, we need to do something here.
Right.
it doesn't matter if people have money or not. Generationally, they don't want to. There's a lot of people that are, a generation or 2 generations from the Depression,
Right.
haven't done a thing or understand what today's pricing is.
Right.
And say, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not spending the money for that. And that ends up, you're kind of stuck in this weird dynamic of the siblings kind of trying to tell mom and dad but they kind of half-heartedly are, because they're like, we've unfortunately seen this too, because they're like, well, I would get that money if they don't put it into the house. So now they're kind of invested, but they're not. So you get this very weird dynamic, and unfortunately, it is usually around money to say, okay, well, it's going to cost this to really get you comfortable.
Right. One of the things that the training that we get, realtors get for the SRES training and continuing training that, I do all the time, is really about family dynamics, because, just like everybody's needs are different, everybody's family is different. And so sometimes I'm just dealing with the senior themselves, and I work with them and help them. And sometimes I'm dealing with the whole family. And so it's really, part of what we do is say, let's bring people together, or, if there's one person making a decision, but that's part of the job. That's part of the job. And, my background is in strategic planning. And that really helps because I can do scenarios.
Right.
And a lot of times I get called in when there are people sort of churning where, we keep, well, I don't know what the first step is. And I can't, or we keep, and so it's good because I can come in and say, okay, here is scenario 1. If you do this, it will cost this.
Right.
And here are the, let's talk through the pros and cons. Here's scenario 2 and here's scenario 3. Have I left anything out? And what that does is it makes it more real instead of this sort of amorphous fear.
Yeah.
I got into this because I worked with my in-laws where I, went to them and, said, what's wrong? What's keeping you up at night? And it was finally got to understand what it was. It was, we can't really take care of this house.
Right.
My father-in-law was 90 years old and he was out there with a chainsaw trying to cut up the trees, and it was not good. So I think that it's really important to be able to ask people what's on your mind and then to try to sort of, be able to listen to the varying viewpoints and create these tools that help people figure things out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it kind of takes a team, and have everybody kind of specialize in a different aspects of it, because it is a lot. It's a lot of dynamics, and it can, in a lot of circumstances, it can be a lot of fun, and people can have a good time, and then others, there's it's kind of, there's dread, and there's
emotion.
A lot of emotion. Yeah. But I love how, creating the plan, like how you're saying, create the plan, give them options. Everybody needs to feel like they're still in control, because that's really what it is. It's a loss of control.
Right.
And then you're thinking about even more loss of control. And I don't, for some people, that's very challenging to think that maybe my mobility is going to get less.
Right. But it also could be more.
Right.
It could be increased.
Right.
Because of what you're talking about.
Right.
You can say, hey, I can increase your, the changes that we're making can actually increase your mobility.
Yeah.
So it's really about facing the future with optimism.
Yeah.
And looking at the facts. Sometimes what I say to people is, if you're having trouble making a decision, maybe you don't have enough information.
That's very good. Yeah, I love that.
And so I'm a big research person.
Yeah. And
so I'll say, okay, what else do we need to know?
Yeah.
And, that's how I found you. There are people out there who do this, who only do this, and they know how to do it. So if you need something, I actually contacted you for a particular phone call that somebody had, where they said, I'm a professional. I'm anticipating needing to make a change in my house. And I don't know what to do. Nobody seems to understand what I need when I say I need a roll-in shower.
Right.
I said, absolutely, someone knows what you mean. How can it be?
I think that late. She's out in Oregon. I think she's coming back end of the month. Yeah, we connected, and then it said, well, when you come back, we'll come out and chat.
Yeah, but imagine being frustrated that what you're talking about seems impossible.
Yeah. So we kind of went and we were chatting before we turned it on, kind of getting the information out.
Right.
And so what was your, you had some good ideas. What was, because I think that's what it is. How do we educate? So it is an option. And I love how you're talking about, if they're in control and say, okay, here's option 1, you can stay in your home. Here's option 2, you can, move to something different or another home. Maybe it's just simply option 2 is let's find you a ranch.
Right.
Or option 3 can, be more. So what is your, being in the nonprofit and what is your thoughts on?
Yeah, I go to lots of events. I love meeting people. I love talking to people about what they've learned and how they help people. And I was surprised to find out that many municipalities don't know about the certified aging in place specialists. I just was really surprised. So it would be great if this specialty was more widely known.
Yeah.
Because this person contacted her local municipality, the senior center, and the senior centers are amazing places. They are so helpful to their constituencies. They provide so many services. So that if they knew about it, I'm sure they would share this information, but they just don't know about it. And maybe some do. But I would love to see that information in the hands of the people on the ground,
right,
who are getting all these calls saying, I really need to do this work. Who can you tell me about?
Yeah.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah. Oh, and having that option of saying, hey, we can make your life a lot easier, because there's so much, and there's different levels that we look at. There can just be simply a makeover that can come in and, putting in some just simple grab bars, but there's also a lot of different aspects of, even in the kitchen, where there's pull down shelves so you can start to access, it's those little, there's lots of cool stuff that goes in cabinets that just pull out very easily, instead of you having to, crawl underneath, and and as you get older, that's a little bit harder, and or let's not have to get a step stool.
Oh boy.
To get to that next level, because
love that.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of those little fixes that you don't need a full renovation that can make your life a lot easier. A simple one is, going from a standard light switch to a Decora switch, and basically that's the difference is just it's a rocker instead of just a switch, it's a single switch. And why that's better is because you can literally bump into it if you need to, and it turns the light on, because it's more, it's instead of having to kind of get your hand out and flip the switch up. So it's all these little simple fixes that, when that can be done, it just makes your life a little bit easier.
Well, it makes me even think even more broadly, and I immediately go to systems thinking anyway, but I'm thinking, when they're building 51 plus facilities, condos,
right.
Why don't they just build them all that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know,
I would hope that they're thinking in some of the, to a little bit, but there's always, all that stuff is always like it's a little bit more expensive,
right. But even not 51 plus,
right.
Why don't they just build everything that
way?
Right. Because we all are, getting older, and also, it is disabled friendly.
Yeah.
Yep. All of us are built differently,
right.
And how we access things around us is different.
It's I think some of it, like you said, is when the towns and the people that are kind of putting out the information or connecting people with the information, that they're not aware of it.
Right.
So there's an educational aspect of it, because, technology and building products move very quickly. And if you're not in the industry, you don't realize, like I wouldn't know that, flooring materials have different coefficients for friction. So we want the right amount of friction when it comes to aging in place, but you don't want too much friction.
Right. You could trip.
Right. Because you end up when you as you age, you might start to shuffle, but you don't want it slippery, but you don't want it too much friction, because as you shuffle, it's going to be a pain in the neck.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of little things, especially in the shower. We need to really make sure we have a lot of friction in the wet areas. And that's using, there's rated tile that has a slip coefficient to it. And is rated for that. But I think most of it's probably just the knowledge, or is the developer know that these products exist?
Right. It's not widely discussed.
Right. And it probably helps everybody. Like you said, it's going to help. Everybody's going to have, kids still slip on the floor.
Right.
If it's too, because we see these wide format porcelain tiles that everybody loves because there's no grout lines, but it's like a skating rink.
Right.
When it's wet.
Right. I'm thinking about my dog.
Right.
My dog doesn't get traction on our floor.
Yes.
And is constantly.
We had to put a stair runner because our dog, Blue, he'd go up and down try to go up and down the stairs. He was always falling because it was, the wooden stairs. So we had to put a runner because it was just, it's a really good point. Even pets.
It seems sort of a little bit related to the concept of human-centered design, of how people actually use things.
Yeah.
And paying attention to how that works.
Right.
And adapting the products to the way that people use them.
I think that's a whole other avenue that I've always had a lot of interest is let's make homes, that make us feel good, in the design, but also installing products that are healthier. We try to, usually we're this consumption society that we're pushing to build all these McMansions, and people are putting their who they are on how large their house is. And what that does is it pushes the demand for building products to become cheaper and cheaper. And then we end up, getting stuff that when we put in the home or the way we build, it's unhealthy. If it's off-gassing ammonia or a lot of different products are off-gassing these chemicals from the glues and all of this stuff. And,
right.
We don't even know what it's doing to us. And,
right.
And
right.
we had this big push for energy efficiency, and we tried to build these really tight houses. And what was happening is it would trap all these chemicals in, but it would also not breathe. So everything is growing mold, and the air is stale, and people are unhealthy, and it's so bad for you. And I think we need to, move more to, how is this going to make you feel?
Right.
And is it safe, and is it healthy?
Right. Right. We had a situation like that where we moved to a house that just had an apartment that just had the floors done. Mm-hmm. And we went to see a naturopath, and my daughter and I were both incredibly sick. And she said, "Did you just move?" Mm-hmm. And, it's winter and everything's sealed up. We were so sick. She said, my prescription is open the windows.
Yeah.
And we got better.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Everybody wants that new car smell, but they just don't know what it's doing it to you.
It's really bad.
It is really bad. So there's a lot, and we spend so much time in our homes, and we actually had an episode on healthy homes, and we talked about, the best thing for you is to open up all your windows and let the air, people, back in the day, people would go to the ocean to get healthy again or heal. One step is just let your air around you into your home is a step forward.
Right.
And I think that's that could be also, as people are kind of in their homes, I think that's a good reason to replace your windows if you can't open them.
Right.
Right.
That's so they got painted shut.
Yeah.
And, the ones that have that cord.
Right. They won't stay up. They those usually break or they fall apart. Yeah, my wife and I walk our dog every night, and you can tell like the people that are kind of shuttered in, and it's not healthy. It's not.
And that's another thing, that I have this whole checklist that I use when I meet with people to do this assessment or, analysis with them. And one of them is, what's your neighborhood like? Mm. There's the physical aspects, there's the social aspects, and there's the financial aspects. Mm. And the social aspects have to do with, and this was the case with my in-laws, they were on this incredibly busy street. And so they didn't go out except in the car.
Right.
And so they didn't walk. That affects your life. Mm-hmm. Where they are now, they can walk. They can take walks. But are there sidewalks in your neighborhood? Is a really important question. And one that I ask people when they're looking for homes. How important is it for you to have sidewalks? Because that will affect how you use your neighborhood.
And it's where, that we have this urban sprawl kind of model in the US, and where it is like if you're not near, I know West Hartford tried to kind of adjust that, and they put that new model where the living was in above the stores, but we have this isolation. And I think that's probably a really good question if you should stay in your home is, are you okay? Do you have a support system that is going to involve you
That's all those questions under
Yeah.
social.
Yeah.
Is are you involved with other people?
Right.
Because if you're in a home where they were, that was part of the problem. Is they were in their home and they hadn't seen anybody
Right.
in months.
Yeah.
So it's not just the home. The home is part of an ecosystem.
Right.
And your health is based on many things. How do you get your food? Where does your food come from? And, can you make your own food?
Right.
Are you able to make your own food either physically or, where are you getting it is part of your health, but also who do you eat it with? Do you eat it with anybody? And increasingly, the idea of loneliness as a public health issue has been raised, and it does strike older people and younger people. But since we're talking about older people,
that's a good point, though. When you're thinking about because I think they've tied into loneliness and mild depressions, like equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes. It's like it cuts your lifetime down, 10 years usually, compared to somebody, it's eating bacon and smoking cigarettes and drinking and, they're in their 90s because they're having a good time and they,
have at it.
Yeah. I think, having a good time is probably the best medicine out there. But yeah, I think that's very insightful to thinking about when you're talking to somebody. And, if they don't have that social network or that kind of support system that is going to make sure that they're okay in their home, maybe it makes sense for them to maybe move into some sort of a community where they can walk down to the community center or room where they're having games and there's organization, and you're not stuck at the cul-de-sac over some old house that no one's going to check up on you and
I mean, I think that's for people to decide for themselves, but it's something to think about. And that's really what I'm there for, is just to raise issues so that you can think about it.
Yeah. Well, Kate, that went quick. I'm getting the light over there from Liam. I don't know what time. What time is it? That was an hour. What how can people find you?
They can call me at 860-690-5467. They can come to my website, which is kategervais.com, and Gervais is G as in George, ERV as in Victor, AIS as in Sam.com, or they can email me at asset-keeper.com.
Love it. And there, call if you're who's the ideal, who you can help the best. Who does that person look like?
If you are, listen, anybody who's buying or selling a home, I am happy to talk to.
Yeah.
I think if you are someone who is trying to figure out whether you should stay in your home or go somewhere else, I think I can be a really great help to you.
Yeah.
And if you have a loved one, if you're a child of an older person and you want to figure out if you can help them, I'm happy to talk to you.
Yeah. I think that's a whole other, conversation too, about the daughters and the sons, and the challenges that dynamic is, because usually a lot of this time they're starting to take over and then it's this different dynamic.
Right. And it's hard to to help your parents because they're so used to helping you.
Yeah.
And they don't want you to tell them what to do necessarily. Right. But sometimes it's easier to have a person who has doesn't have any prior relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
have that more consultant.
Yeah.
Bring in and say, hey, let's try to figure this out.
Yeah. So happy to talk to anyone.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thanks again, Kate. And always, it's a great conversation. And, the subjects I think is needed. So hopefully, people that listen and watch, they got something out of it.
Great to talk to you too.
Yeah.